Inside an Auburn kebab shop on Monday afternoon, two masked gunmen run in and draw their weapons.
You've just seen it. Broad daylight in suburban Sydney. A kebab shop, a quiet street, and suddenly, chaos. Two masked men burst through the front door, guns raised, spraying bullets. It looks like something out of a movie. But this was real. And their target? A man with deep roots in Sydney's underworld. Samimjan Azari. To the public, Azari might have seemed like just another bloke with a nice car and flashy clothes. But behind the scenes, he was a key player in one of Australia's most dangerous networks, entangled in drug trafficking, gangland alliances, and violent power plays. By the time bullets started flying in that cafe, Azari wasn't just a name. He was a target. This is the story of how a kebab shop shooting lifted the curtain on a man operating in the shadows, a figure connected to bikies, cartel-linked operations, and one of the most high-profile drug trials in recent Australian history. From encrypted phones to massive meth shipments, and from quiet cafes to violent hits, Samimjan Azari's journey offers a window into the modern face of organized crime in Australia. This is how it all unfolded, and why someone wanted Azari silenced for good. It was just after 3:30 p.m. on a Monday afternoon when chaos erupted inside a quiet kebab shop on Auburn Road in western Sydney. CCTV footage shows the calm of the suburban eatery shattered in seconds. Two masked gunmen stormed in, automatic pistols drawn, and opened fire without hesitation. Their target was Samimjan Azari, a 29-year-old known associate of the feared Al Madeen crime network. He was sitting with two others when the shots rang out. One man bolted toward the back of the shop. Another tried to protect himself with cafe chairs, but Azari had nowhere to run. Multiple rounds struck Azari in the hip and torso, and one of his associates, a 25-year-old man, was hit in the face. Nearby, a 47-year-old woman, an innocent bystander, was also struck twice in the torso as the gunfire ripped through the crowded shop. She wasn't part of any gang feud. She was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The shooters fled immediately, escaping in a black Audi that was later found burnt out in nearby Harris Park. It was a professional hit, fast, brutal, and designed to send a message. But despite the hail of bullets, all three victims survived. Azari was rushed to hospital in serious condition, but within hours, he was reported stable. What stood out most to police wasn't just the violence, it was the audacity. This wasn't a back alley ambush or a late-night drive-by. This was a full-blown hit job in broad daylight, carried out in a suburban restaurant full of families and innocent customers. It marked the fourth known attempt on Azari's life in recent months, and police had seen it coming. According to NS Police Assistant Commissioner Jason Weinstein, officers had repeatedly warned Azari that his life was in danger. He'd been told clearly, stay out of public spaces, beef up security, take precautions. But Azari brushed it off. He was reasonably dismissive, Weinstein said. He continued his movements in public with not a great deal of concern. Now, the fallout was unmistakable. A young woman shot, a bloody scene captured on camera, a gangland figure in hospital, and a city on edge. The shooting didn't happen in isolation. It was the latest chapter in Sydney's escalating gangland war, a tit-for-tat cycle of retribution that has turned once quiet suburbs into battlegrounds. Just weeks earlier, grandmother Kim Duncan had died after being caught in crossfire in Ambervale. Days later, a Bankstown mother was kidnapped and murdered in front of her children. An attack police say was tied to her partner's criminal links. With the violence spiraling, NS Premier Chris Minns spoke out. This is a horrifying, violent chapter in the state's history, and it needs to be met with the full force of the law. Task Force Falcon, the police operation dedicated to breaking the gang war, is now focused on tracking down Azari's would-be assassins and those who sent them. But behind the bullets is a deeper story, one that ties Azari not just to shootings, but to meth importations, encrypted communications, and a powerful criminal network that's deeply entrenched in Western Sydney. That network? The Alameddine crime clan. To understand why Samimjan Azari became a target of such relentless violence, you have to understand who he is and what he represents within the criminal underworld of Sydney. Azari, 29 years old, isn't a household name. He doesn't have the notorious profile of older underworld figures like Carl Williams or Mick Howie. But within the inner workings of Sydney's gangland networks, Azari is seen as someone who holds influence, a figure tied closely to the powerful and dangerous Alameddine crime network. The Alameddine family has become synonymous with organized crime in Western Sydney. Operating out of suburbs like Maryland's, Guildford, and Auburn, the group has been linked to a wide range of offenses, from drug trafficking and gun crime to high-profile drive-by shootings. But more than anything, they are known for their ability to operate in the shadows while coordinating violence in plain sight. Samimjan Azari is believed to be part of the younger generation of criminals who rose through the ranks during the 2000s and 20s, when encrypted apps like AN0M and Sky ECC were helping criminals across Australia conceal massive drug operations from law enforcement. Azari's name first came to serious police attention when he was implicated in a major transnational drug trafficking case involving a massive shipment of methamphetamine. In that case, which was part of a much broader international sting operation, authorities intercepted encrypted messages detailing drug deals, movements of cash, and plans to expand operations. Azari was accused of playing a role in brokering some of those deals and helping facilitate logistics between Australia-based distributors and overseas suppliers. But it wasn't just meth. Investigators believe that Azari also operated as a facilitator within the Alameddine network, someone who could arrange meetings, transport, and communication between rival factions, bikie gangs, and middle-tier dealers. He was never a kingpin, but he was more than a street-level enforcer. His lifestyle reflected this mid-tier status: expensive cars, designer clothes, a regular presence in flashy parts of Western Sydney. He wasn't trying to stay invisible, and that, some believe, is part of what made him such a target. Police have suggested that Azari's shooting may be part of an ongoing tit-for-tat gang war. Over the last 2 years, there's been a sharp escalation in public shootings, kidnappings, and arson attacks between rival networks, particularly between the Alameddine clan and groups like the Hamzy crew and certain outlaw motorcycle gangs, OMCGs. These aren't traditional turf wars. They're often driven by personal feuds, broken alliances, and failed drug shipments. Task Force Erebus, and now Task Force Falcon, has spent years trying to break the cycles of revenge. But every time one gangland figure falls, another rises. And when a shooting like the one in Auburn happens, it doesn't just end with one suspect, it sets off a chain of retaliation. For Azari, surviving 4 assassination attempts isn't just bad luck. It's a sign that someone, somewhere, sees him as a serious problem. Whether it's a debt unpaid, a betrayal unforgotten, or a power move in the underworld, Azari's name has been stamped with a target. But to really understand why, we need to go deeper into the world of the Alameddine network. The Alameddine crime network has become one of the most notorious and scrutinized syndicates in modern Australian criminal history. Known for its roots in Sydney's western suburbs, the network is made up of interconnected families, friends, and associates, many of whom grew up together in places like Maryland's, Guildford, and Auburn. But what once started as a loosely structured street crew has evolved into a sophisticated and violent organization. At its core, the Alameddine network specializes in drug trafficking, particularly cocaine, MDMA, and methamphetamine. But they've also been linked to firearm smuggling, money laundering, extortion, and contract hits. Their operations stretch across state lines and often involve cooperation with other outlaw motorcycle gangs and international suppliers. Some of their known associates have even dealt with cartels abroad, using encrypted platforms to arrange logistics and payment. The Alamedins are known for their adaptability. While older crime families relied on traditional methods, intimidation, cash smuggling, face-to-face deals, this new generation embraced technology. They used encrypted messaging apps to stay ahead of police, burner phones that changed frequently, and safe houses spread across Sydney. They also tapped into legal businesses to launder money, including gyms, cafes, and used car dealerships. But what made the Alamedin network especially dangerous was its willingness to use violence in public, with little regard for collateral damage. Multiple drive-by shootings have been linked to the group. Houses riddled with bullets, cars set on fire, suspected informants attacked. Some of these acts were meant to settle scores. Others were warnings. Police intelligence has connected the group to numerous shootings, including the high-profile Gangland murder of Bilal Hamze in 2021, although no charges were ever laid directly against core Alamedin family members in that case. Still, the cycle of retaliation between the Alamedin crew and the Hamze-linked Brothers for Life gang has turned parts of Sydney into war zones. Task Force Erebus, formed by NS Dollars Police, has targeted dozens of key players within the Alamedin group over the past several years. In 2021 and 2022, police executed large-scale raids across western Sydney, seizing drugs, cash, firearms, and arresting dozens of suspects. Still, the group continues to operate, often replacing arrested members with younger recruits. Samimjan Azari, according to investigators, was embedded in this ecosystem. Not at the top, but somewhere in the middle, close enough to be dangerous. His name doesn't appear in every major bust, but his presence during key moments, meetings, and alleged deals places him squarely within the network. More importantly, Azari's attempted murder suggests a deeper power struggle unfolding inside or around the Alamedin operation. Either someone within the group wanted him gone, or a rival saw him as too valuable an asset to be left alive. The Auburn kebab shop shooting wasn't random. It was a message, and a public one. As the Alamedin network comes under increasing pressure from both rivals and law enforcement, it's the mid-level figures like Azari who are often the first to be caught in the crossfire. But what really pushed Azari into the spotlight? The answer lies in the case that nearly destroyed him, the drug importation plot that tied him to one of Australia's biggest meth operations. In 2021, Australian authorities were deep into Operation Ironside, a global crackdown on organised crime that used a Trojan horse approach to infiltrate criminal communication. At the heart of the operation was the AN0M app, a supposedly secure messaging platform used by criminals to coordinate everything from assassinations to drug shipments. What they didn't know was that the app had been secretly developed by the FBI and handed to underworld figures through informants. Over 300 criminals across Australia were eventually caught using AN0M, and among the names linked to messages, transactions, and encrypted conversations was Samimjan Azari. Azari's involvement came to light through intercepted messages that tied him to a large-scale methamphetamine importation scheme. According to police, Azari allegedly helped facilitate the logistics of a multi-million-dollar drug operation, acting as a conduit between Australian-based dealers and overseas suppliers. He wasn't the chemist, and he didn't bring in the containers, but he was allegedly trusted enough to help arrange meetings, secure drop locations, and move funds through coded exchanges. The case nearly destroyed him. Azari was arrested and charged with serious drug offenses. But just when prosecutors thought they had a solid case, things began to fall apart. Key pieces of evidence were challenged, witness credibility came under question, and legal technicalities slowed proceedings. Eventually, charges were withdrawn or reduced in a way that allowed Azari to avoid a lengthy prison sentence. To the public, it seemed like he had slipped through the cracks, but to the criminal underworld, his release raised eyebrows and suspicions. In the brutal world of Sydney's Gangland, walking free from a drug case of that scale doesn't go unnoticed. Whispers started circulating. Did Azari flip? Did he cut a deal? Was he under surveillance? These kinds of questions are often enough to paint a target on someone's back, even if there's no proof. What's clear is that after the drug case fell apart, Azari became increasingly visible and increasingly vulnerable. He was seen moving through Western Sydney without security, frequenting cafes and gyms in the Auburn area, and living as though nothing had happened. To police, it was a red flag. To his enemies, it was an opportunity. Authorities now believe that the drug case, combined with Azari's ongoing presence in criminal circles, may have made him a liability, either to rivals who feared he'd cooperate with police, or to his own network, who saw him as a potential loose end. It's worth noting that the black Audi used in the Auburn shooting, later found torched in Harris Park, fits a pattern seen in several other contract-style attacks. Professional hits in Sydney have often involved stolen or cloned vehicles, quick getaways, and cars burned out to destroy forensic evidence. That's not the work of amateurs. That's the signature of calculated underworld violence. For Azari, surviving the shooting may have kept him alive, but it didn't clear his name or reduce the threat. If anything, it made things worse. Now, the world knew someone wanted him dead and had already tried 4 times to make it happen. And the question everyone's asking, who keeps sending the gunman? By the time bullets flew inside the Auburn kebab shop in June 2025, it was already the 4th known attempt on Samimjan Azari's life. 4 times in under 2 years, gunmen have tried to end him, in public, in daylight, and without hesitation. That's not a message. That's a war. And it raises the question, why him? Police say Azari was repeatedly warned. His name came up in surveillance, intelligence briefings, and even in direct threats. Task Force Falcon, the New South Wales police unit tracking the gang war, had flagged him as a high-risk target. He was urged to stay out of public, take precautions, change routines. But Azari didn't listen. According to Assistant Commissioner Jason Weinstein, Azari was reasonably dismissive of the advice. He continued to move freely in public. No visible protection, no relocation. Just another figure in Western Sydney, drinking coffee, going to the gym, and waiting for something to catch up with him. That decision nearly cost him his life. Again. What makes Azari unique in this brutal landscape is not just the number of attempts on his life, but the pattern. He isn't the only person caught in Sydney's gangland crossfire, but most gang hits are one-offs. Someone is taken out. Message delivered. War over. Azari's case is different. 4 attempts, all failed, suggest something deeper. Unfinished business, or worse, ongoing suspicion. Each hit has followed a similar playbook. Stolen cars, rapid strikes, public locations, torched vehicles left behind. These aren't sloppy revenge killings. They're tactical, planned, and expensive. That kind of repeated targeting means someone, or some group, is willing to invest heavily in eliminating Azari. Theories abound. One points to internal tensions within the Alamedi network. Maybe Azari overstepped. Maybe he broke trust. Maybe someone powerful decided he was a threat, not just to the gang, but to their secrecy. Another theory points to rivals, possibly remnants of the Hamzy-aligned Brothers 4 Life Group or other OMCG affiliates. If Azari played a role in operations that damaged their business or territory, a hit could be payback. Or perhaps someone believes he was involved in a double cross, leaking information, botching a shipment, or talking to the wrong people. Then there's the question no one in the underworld likes to hear. Did he cooperate? There's no evidence publicly available to suggest Azari gave information to police. But in Sydney's criminal ecosystem, rumors move faster than facts. And being perceived as a talker is often enough to warrant a death sentence, true or not. Whatever the reason, someone keeps trying to kill him, and failing. But each time they fail, the stakes rise. More pressure, more blood, more public risk. Innocents caught in the crossfire, like the 47-year-old woman in Auburn, or children walking nearby, or the staff who watched bullets tear through their workplace. For now, Azari is still breathing, but he's not safe, not even close. The real danger? He might know too much about people, deals, operations. And that means, as long as he's alive, someone, somewhere, isn't sleeping easy. Samimjan Azari survived the Auburn shooting, but survival in Sydney's underworld isn't the same as escape. When you've been targeted 4 times, every day becomes a gamble. Every street corner is a possible trap. Every familiar face might be the last one you see. As of July 2025, Azari remains in hospital under tight surveillance. Police say they're continuing to investigate who ordered the hit, but so far, no one has been arrested. The burned-out getaway car, a black Audi, is being processed for any trace DNA or surveillance trail. But if past Gangland cases are anything to go by, the likelihood of solid evidence is slim. For police, the shooting has added urgency to an already overwhelmed system. Task Force Falcon now has its sights locked on those orchestrating Sydney's escalating gang war. They're not just looking for shooters. They want the ones paying for them, the ones building hit lists, the ones trying to run Western Sydney from the shadows. The NS Dollars Premier has called the violence a horrifying chapter in the state's history, and the public pressure on law enforcement is mounting. Innocent people are being shot. Kids are seeing blood in the streets. Families are terrified to sit in cafes or walk home after dark. And Azari? He's become a symbol of everything wrong with Sydney's gangland landscape. Not because he's the most powerful, but because he's the most hunted. His survival has made him infamous, but it's also put a target on everyone around him. Police are concerned there may be further attempts on his life, either while he's recovering or once he returns to the streets. Security around the hospital has been discreet, but heavy. Sources say that Azari has remained tight-lipped, refusing to cooperate with authorities about who may be behind the attack. Whether that's due to loyalty or fear, no one knows. Meanwhile, the Al-Madeen network shows no signs of collapsing. Despite arrests, raids, and ongoing surveillance, the structure remains. Younger associates step up when older ones fall. Communications evolve, turf shifts, but the business stays running, and so does the violence. For many, the real question now is, how does it end? If Azari returns to the streets, he may become a lightning rod for further bloodshed. If he cooperates, he risks retaliation. If he disappears, the silence will only fuel more speculation and more paranoia within the network. In this world, trust is rare and fear is constant. Some experts believe the only thing that could break the cycle is a sweeping series of arrests, targeting not just the shooters, but the financiers and enablers. But that kind of operation takes time, resources, and a level of cooperation across state and federal agencies that is difficult to sustain long-term. Until then, people like Azari, and the rivals who want him gone, will continue to circle each other, watching, waiting, reloading. Because in the underworld, the past never stays buried, and no one forgets a name once it's written in blood.